Welcome to the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage, where rude mechanicals do magic. Hello, I'm Bronze Age, Director of the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage. And today we're going to rewire this Mogul floor lamp, which includes losing the Mogul bulb. Now this is a Mogul bulb. It's got a base like this, and compared to what they call the regular Edison, you can see the difference. Now, I have always encouraged people to keep the Mogul bulb in their floor lamps. They're still available. The sockets are still available. There's no reason you can't completely rewire one with all new stuff if you wanted to. The problem is these things use a lot of electricity. And with people wanting to go to LED lights, which are readily available in the Edison style, that's the only practical way to go. So today we'll be taking out this big Mogul socket and putting in an Edison and figuring out what to do with the key switch. This piece here is usually called the body. It's where all the wiring connections are, and it's held together with this little tiny screw, which you don't want to lose, because once it hits the floor there's no telling where it's going to go. And there's our Mogul socket. Now what I want to do is fix this socket so that it is basically in the same position with the neck of the shell right there with the neck of the face. And that's going to require some kind of spacer here. Also, you'll notice this is a keyless socket. I don't have a switch. It wouldn't line up with the hole anyway. And if it did, I'd be putting the bulb down here way too low. So what I'm going to have is the socket mounted on a small piece of pipe and a three-way switch going to the socket. Now since these wires are multi-strand, first thing I have to do is give them a good tight twist and then apply a drop of solder on the ends. This is so that when you put them under the screw terminal, they won't splay out and get loose. Now, strangely enough, this is one of the most common things I get comments about from people saying, you don't need to do this. Well, it's required by the National Electrical Code. And as far as I'm concerned, that pretty much settles it. There's no room for argument. You either do it right or, what's the point of doing it? Now, this is when you need to pay attention to your hardware. Because if you don't, you'll be taking it apart, putting it back together 3 or 4 times. Now we start with the nipple and the hickey, have the red wire, the blue wire, and this white wire, which will be going to the electrical cord. Pull that up through there, and now we have the socket base. It goes on like that. And when I'm assembling things like this, I always use the blue thread sealer, and that keeps everything nice and tight without having to squeeze it down till it screams. And this stuff is pretty lightweight. You tighten it too much, it's just simply going to break. The socket has 3 terminal screws: silver, brass, and black. And the white wire goes to the silver one. And this will go down into the body, and that'll be connected up to the side of the electrical cord that has ridges on it. More about that later. Now, we put the blue one on the black screw. And I will have to say, it doesn't really matter, because as long as you get all 3 wires underneath a screw and get it tight, the light will work, and it'll have 3 different brightnesses. However, it may not be in the order you expect them to be. People are used to turning on a lamp, and if it's got a 3-way bulb in it, it's off, then dim, then medium, and then bright. And it's a little disconcerting when it comes on bright immediately, or dim is first and medium is third. But we get this down like this, and we'll get it snapped together, and we'll continue the construction. This is a check ring. It's another piece of lighting hardware. They normally look like this, but what I've done is spent some time very tediously filing away part of the edge so that it will fit flush down on here when I install the switch. And that part is finished. Now I'll strip down the rest of the lamp. One of the problems of working on floor lamps is that they're long and they're really heavy on the bottom, which makes them awkward to work with. So I've made a special clamp to be able to hold in the vise, and then I wrote floor lamp clamp on it so I won't forget what it is. What this lets me do is mount it level, so I'll be able to reach both ends at the same time when I'm trying to pull the new cord through it. Now there's 2 different sizes of lamp cord. What's in the lamp right now, which I don't think is original, is called SPT1. We're going to replace it with SPT2, which is basically just more insulation, more resistant to being scraped or rubbed on the floor. And since it's a floor lamp, we know the cord's going to be on the floor. My plan is to use the old cord to pull the new cord up the pipe. And I'm going to start off with the simplest way to do this, which is just simply hook the 2 wires around each other and roll them up with a piece of masking tape to keep them nice and tight. Now, this works good when you don't have a lot of friction inside the pipe. You're not going around corners or anything like that. If it gets too bad and there's some kind of snag in there, I'll end up having to solder these 2 wires together, and that can let me put a lot of pull on it. But let's see how this works. Wish it were all that easy. Wiring the arms is pretty straightforward. I start with pushing the wire from the inside and come up here, because the hardware I'm going to use on here is going to create a couple of little snags. So if I push the wire up through it before I get that on there, it'll work better. And I'm putting these star washers on here, not because I want to keep it tight. I'm depending on the blue Loctite for that. But the threads on these arms don't go down far enough, so that this coupler would run out of threads before it gets the little bobiche here tight. That's nice. Now, I'm using this coupler and this nipple because the sockets I got are a little bit shorter than the original, like that. And rather than spend the time it would take to order them and get them in, I can go ahead and just use these. They work perfectly well, no problems at all. Now, duplex wire like this that's sold in the United States for lighting work has one side the insulation is smooth and one side the insulation is ridged. And what that is for is so when we get down to the socket here, you'll notice we've got a silver screw here, and on the other side we'll have a brass screw. Well, the side with the ridges goes to the silver screw, and that connects it. That connects to the shell of the socket. Now, this is much more important when you're doing a regular table lamp that has a keyed socket, because what that does is it isolates the shell from the switch, so that if you were to reach up and touch a lamp that didn't have a bulb in it, like you were trying to turn it on in the dark, you wouldn't get shocked if you touched the shell. Now, that's not as much is likely to happen here, but it's just good practice to do it the same way every time. Again, more of that code stuff that really makes a difference in how good a job you do. Now, to protect this connection, I rely on shrink wrap, which is a special kind of plastic that, as the name says, shrinks when it gets hot. Then I take a little short piece, curl it over, put that on it, hit it one more time, and we've got a nice, safe, secure connection. The next connection is the black wire from the switch in the cup and the black wire from the switch in the body, and they all go to the smooth wire of the cord. Now we're left with 3 smooth wires with the black mark, a red wire, and a blue wire. And all you have to do is put 2 of your smooth wires on blue and the remaining one on red, in any combination. It doesn't really matter, because the performance of the lights is going to be just the same. Now I've got all the wires tucked in there nice and neat, so that nothing's going to get pinched when I tighten this down. Get this back down on there nice and straight, and find that little screw I told you not to lose. You're not going to find one of these at the hardware store these days. And then you just fiddle with it until you get it all the way down nice and straight and tight. This is Bronze Age for the Secret Underground Laboratory. Thank you for sticking through this video with me about how to give up the Mogul way of life. Appreciate it if you would hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Certainly tell all your friends, and hope to see you again next week in our next video.